Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk a little bit about kids and gun safety. This is probably a video I should have done a long time ago, but I just never got around to it. And there's a couple of things that happened in the news that have really motivated me to do a video on this. Okay, so I'm going to talk about kids and gun safety at three different levels. One is if you've got like toddlers in your house, right? Like really small kids. If you got teenagers, right, that's the second level. And the third level is actually teaching them, right, about gun safety, right? So three different levels I'm going to talk about in this video. Let's talk about toddlers, right? Small kids in your house that get into everything, okay? They get into everything. They watch TV. They see stuff on TV. Over here, I have on this table a couple of items, right? I have a carry gun, I have a circular saw, I have my tractor keys, and I have some kitchen knives, okay? All of which are equally dangerous, okay? So here's the thing, kids see stuff on television, even in cartoons, right? And they really, small kids can't tell the difference between, what's real, what's not. They see cartoon characters get smashed and come back to life. Okay, so that's one of the things that you gotta be aware of. You gotta kind of see things from a child's perspective a little bit. So I'll tell you guys a story, right? My oldest son, who's now 6 years old, way back when he was, I think, either 2 or 3 years old, we were having dinner, and I see him. I'm eating, right? I see him pick up the kitchen knife over here. I can see he's really excited by it. He likes it, turns to the side, and he starts going like that into the air. I'm like, holy shit, okay? Immediately, I basically told my wife, gather up all the kitchen knives. Next day, I bought a bunch of these round tip knives, okay? And that's basically what we eat with, okay? So basically, as an example of, it was a situation that I wasn't expecting, that did not anticipate, right? Didn't anticipate my son doing this in the air, right? And that, he was, at the time, I think he was like 3 years old or 2 years old, and I have his sister was a year younger than him, and right away I'm thinking to myself, he's, without knowing what he's doing, he might attack his younger sister. So basically, as a parent, it's your job to anticipate, right? You gotta, look at your kids, know how they're developing, realize where potential problems are, and it's your responsibility to basically protect them from themselves and also protect the other kids. Okay, so that's a real life example, right? Now my son is very aggressive. He's inherited my personality. Okay, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. When I was a child, I was a problem child. Okay, now here's the thing: a lot of times, kids become problem children, right? Because of a situation that exists in their house, right? There might be basically there might be trouble in the house. That was not the case. That was not my case, right? My parents, happily married, still married to this day. All right. So basically, without any bad influences from my house, if anything, I had all the best influences. I was a very troublesome child. So in those toddler years, I was definitely prone to being, to getting into trouble. Right now, it wasn't malicious at that point, but it just, listen, I was definitely prone to getting into trouble. So I'll give you guys another example with toddlers. Right, I've got this in my shed. Sometimes both. I got three kids. Right, I got a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and I've got a 3-year-old now. A lot of times they will follow me into the shed. In the shed, I have this. This is potentially very dangerous. So in my shed, basically, I separate these two things. Okay, I separate these two things because I can anticipate the problem of them going into the shed, finding this in working condition, and getting this to work. Despite the fact that there's, basically you got to press, there's a thumb safety here, but you got to basically press 2 triggers to make this work. Kids are not dumb, all right? They will figure this stuff out. So basically, I keep the batteries separate, because basically I can anticipate what kind of a problem I might have there. Okay. Um, Now my children are too small at this point to be able to reach the pedals in either my truck or my tractor. But I can tell you that as soon as they're tall enough to reach the pedals of my vehicles, I'm going to start, hiding my keys. Okay. Um, Here's the thing: kids today start learning to drive at a very young age. Okay, you know those little battery operated cars, right? I don't know, they're about this big. They run on these 12-volt batteries. I got 3 kids. I got 3 cars. Okay, both my 3-year-old can't. Actually, he kind of goes back and forth with it, but he really can't. He doesn't understand how to work the steering wheel yet. He just goes back and forth. But my 6-year-old son and my 5-year-old daughter, they can run a slalom with those cars, right? So they know how to drive. They know what the steering wheel does. They know what the pedals do, right? And they obviously watch me and my wife drive. So certainly by the time they're 10, right? Even earlier, maybe 9, right? I can see my son, because all my kids throughout from the time that they were able to walk, their main thing is they will climb onto my tractor and they will sit in the car seat and they will pretend to drive. They'll get in my truck. They'll do the same thing. So, okay, that's kind of obvious. I got to basically, guard my car keys. Okay, so that's just, that's my situation. It's something I see developing, and I have to, it's my responsibility to keep an eye on these things. Okay, so now let's get to the gun situation. Okay. Before I had kids, okay, I kept, basically all my guns have always been in safes, except for one, right? Before my kids were born, before they started walking around and climbing into stuff, right? I had all my guns in safes, right? Except for one gun that I kept someplace for easy access, should I ever need it, okay? So I always kept the gun, hidden somewhere in the house for easy access. As soon as my oldest son got to the point where he was starting to walk around and climb on stuff, right? I basically made a decision that I could not do that anymore, all right? Now, I have my big 400-pound safes, right? But I went and I bought one of those $60 safes. I think it was from Lowe's or something, that had the electronic keypad. And basically my carry gun, all right, goes in there, okay? So here's the thing with my carry gun. This gun at all times is either on my body or it's in the safe. Okay, if I'm going to go, let's say I'm going to go use the bathroom, even in my own house, I will never take the gun and put this on the surface. If I gotta basically drop my drawers to go to the bathroom, I will take the gun off my belt and I will stick it into my pocket like the way you see it, right? So that, and then I can use the bathroom. This way, there's no chance that I will ever forget the gun on a surface. Just this morning, I was in the bathroom and I hear my wife screaming. I hear my little son, my 3-year-old, start screaming. Basically, he knocked over a lamp. My wife thought that it was actually a plastic cover. She thought it was glass. So she's screaming for help. So basically, I come running out of the bathroom. But here's the thing. I didn't know what happened. I just knew that there was some type of an emergency. It turned out not to be a big deal. But that's a situation where, if I had my gun on the surface, right? Let's say I put it on top of the toilet tank or on the sink, that's an example where I'm being distracted by what I think is some emergency, and I'm going to leave the gun there, and I'm probably not going to remember that I did that, okay? And while I'm downstairs cleaning up that mess that one of my kids did, the other one could be upstairs in the bathroom finding this, all right? So that's the reason why I say once your kids reach the age that they're walking around, okay, your carry gun is either on your body or it's in a safe. Now, people will sometimes say, well, what if there's a break-in, right? What if somebody's, what if there's a security emergency, right? Where somebody's breaking into your house and you can't, you're sleeping, because obviously I'm not going to sleep with the gun. It's in the safe and you can't get the safe open, okay? Here's the thing. On a day-to-day basis, I have to consider what is the biggest risk to my family, okay? Is it is it somebody breaking into my house, or is it my kids getting to one of my guns if I leave it out? And realistically, it's if I leave my gun where it is accessible, the chances the chances of my kids getting to the gun is a lot greater than the chances of having a home invasion that same day. Okay, so on a day-by-day basis, I have to judge what is the greater risk. Now, if there's riots and stuff going on in my neighborhood, yeah, now basically I gotta switch gears. What I will do if I have to is I will basically sleep with the gun on my body, right? If that's what I have to do. But under no circumstances does the gun, is the gun on a surface or basically, like I said, it's either on my body or it's in the safe. Okay. All right. So now I think I covered all of that. Let's move on to the teenagers. Can you close my jacket up? Let's get on to the teenagers. Okay. So here's just a fact. Okay. As kids become teenagers, they go through hormonal. They got raging hormones and all that crazy stuff that goes through them. I know I went through it, right? And they're going to go through troubled times, okay? In some cases, it might be from external sources. It might be from, let's say, other kids, or maybe the teachers at school, or maybe because you didn't give them the toy that they wanted, So, kids at that level haven't really developed the maturity to be able to weigh things out. So they need help, okay? Now, like I said, I was probably what you would call a troubled teenager, although I never did anything that was really dangerous. I can certainly see that between the time that I was 10 years old and the time that I was 14 years old, right? If I had access to something like this, maybe I would have gotten to a situation that really would have, took my life in a direction that I couldn't come back from. Okay, so my parents were really good in protecting me from myself. Okay, and that's the important thing. The parents have to do that. They have to protect the kids from themselves. They have to protect their other kids from their kids. That's just the reality. Now, here's the thing. The thing to understand is just because you have a teenager that's going through some troubled times, right, as they through some growing pains, it doesn't mean that they're not going to grow out of it. Okay, so you might have a child that's in those years, and you might be thinking to yourself, this kid is, he's going to end up in jail, right? But here's the thing: once they get past those teenage years, they get into their 20s, they can change, right? They can, they start seeing things differently. So it's the job of the parents to help them get through those difficult teenage years, okay? And and all of that is part of making, protecting them from dangerous things that you might have in your house, whether it be guns or power tools, or even knives, if you think that that's something that you got to protect them with. These are all things that you just have to consider. You got to keep your eyes open, use your brain, see what your kids are doing, pay attention to what they're doing, talk to your spouse or whoever you got in your house, and just stay on top of that, right? That's the job of a parent. Now, it really helps if you've got two parents, right? It really helps. Let me say this: for thousands of years, we've had this, what we call, let's say, the traditional family, right? With husband, wife, kids, okay? And there's the way duties have been kind of split up. The father basically did most of the work. The wife took care of the house, mostly took care of the kids. Husband really didn't get involved too much with the house until there was a problem, right? Whether that problem be that, the roof was leaking, the boiler's not working, the kids are really acting up, okay? That's typically when the father gets involved, right? Now here's the thing, that's just something that has been around for a very long period of time and has been proven successful. And I'm a big believer in not reinventing the wheel, okay? If you've got something that has been working for thousands of years, it's probably a good idea to keep doing it that way, because when you try and change a system, right, especially when you try to change the whole system all at once or too fast, you can't anticipate where you're going to have problems. Okay. Now back, because I was born in 1972. Okay. Back in 1972, or rather, I don't remember 1972, but let's say 10 years later, right? Back in 1982. All right. I remember watching TV, right? We're talking like early 80s. And I remember, at some point there was, as I was flipping through the channels back then, cable wasn't that popular. We just had like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 channels. So I remember flipping through the channels, and I saw some interview. They were interviewing some, I guess, psychologists. I really can't remember. And he was talking about the high divorce rates that were occurring back in the 70s and early 80s. And this psychologist slash doctor slash, I don't know, teacher, whatever it was, I remember him saying that down the road this is going to create problems, right? It's going to create problems for the kids, right? Now here's the thing, that was back in 1980 that I was hearing this. And here's the thing, now we're like almost 3 generations into that, right? We're 3 generations in some cases, right? Where you've had these continual what I would call the disintegration of the traditional family, right? Where you have, like, let's say the single mothers or single fathers or what be it. You've got the constant divorces and remarrying. You've got 3 generations of that. So now you've got kids today, right, who not only their parents were divorced, separated, or whatever, but also their grandparents and maybe even their great-grandparents, right? So the problem that I'm seeing today is that in a lot of family situations or a lot of situations, right, they have forgotten how to raise their kids. They have forgotten how a family is supposed to be structured. Okay, in my case, I'm lucky. Like I said, I have both my I have my grandparents who are all deceased at this point, but they were obviously married their whole lives. Parents, now me and my wife, and basically my kids are seeing this, right? They're seeing what a family is supposed to be like. So the problem that I'm seeing today, that I think exists today, is that a lot of kids growing up and a lot of adults don't know what a family is supposed to be like. So they've got no model, no example to follow, right? So because this is now the result of at least 3 generations of this continual breakdown. And quite honestly, I think that in many cases, the Democrats are basically encouraging divorces because single mothers tend to vote for Democrats. So I think that they do things to encourage families getting divorced, giving out easier welfare, all that stuff, right? Because like when my parents were growing up, I mean, listen, everybody's got difficulties. Even my grandparents, right? I remember them having a couple of fights, But here's the thing, in the end, they always fixed things, right? They always went back to fix things because there was no alternative. It's like, this is our family. We got to preserve the family. This is for the benefit of the kids. So no matter what the problem was, it had to get fixed. Well, today, I don't think that that's something that people recognize. Today, everybody thinks that they have an out, that they can say, hey, I'm leaving, and I think that is, the thing that I see today is like, oh, okay, it's not working out. Okay, fine. It's not for you. You got to move on. And I think that's the wrong attitude. I think the right attitude is that, hey, listen, you're married. You got kids. I don't care if you're happy or not, right? It's not about your happiness anymore, right? At the point where you got married, hopefully got married, at the point where you had kids, it's now about your kids. It's no longer about you. So if you staying in a relationship and being not happy will benefit your kids, then that's what you do. Okay, that's my opinion on that. Okay, so enough of that. Let's move on a little bit to gun training and kids. Okay, so I'm a big believer in teaching your kids gun safety, introducing them to guns. So I've trained as a full-time gun instructor. I've trained kids as young as 5 years old, right? Now you might, basically the way that works is, the gun is, let's say, rested on the table. It's pretty much immovable. A lot of times I position them. I'm even holding the stock to make sure that the gun's pointed at, in the right direction. What's the point of that, right? A 5-year-old kid, if I give him a gun safety course, tell him the rules, guns in a safe direction, figures off, trigger until you're ready to shoot, all guns are always loaded. 5-year-old's really not going to get that. The reason why I do that is because when I'm training a 5, 6, 7-year-old, right, the parents are standing right, about 10 feet behind, right? And they're listening to this, okay? So this is a way for me, through the child, to instruct the parents and to teach them gun safety, okay? So that's one of the reasons why I never miss an opportunity to train kids, even if they're 5, 6, 7 years old. And I know that they're not going to remember the gun safety rules, right? Because they're just too young, but the parents will. So all the things that I'm saying are for the parents to hear. So even when I'm talking about, hey, keep your guns locked up and all that kind of stuff, obviously that means nothing to a 5-year-old. I want the parents to hear that. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I train kids, as young as 5 years old. Okay, now how about with the teenagers, right? With the teenagers, it goes both ways because now I'm actually teaching the teenager, and I'm also, because remember I'm not gonna train anybody's kids who are under 18 unless the parents are there, right? Because I don't want to be left alone with somebody else's kids. So the parents are always going to be there. Again, I'm teaching the parents in addition to the child. And one of the things that I will also mention at some point during that training session is I will tell this teenager that even though I am training you in firearms, you are no longer, you are not an expert. And I don't want you, if you ever see a gun in your house or somebody else's house, you're not to touch it. You're to leave the room. Tell an adult that there's a gun out in the house. Okay, so that's one of the things I include when I'm teaching teenagers. And the other thing I will mention to them is don't do anything that will get you in trouble, so that later on in life you're not able to own firearms. Okay, so that's another thing that I kind of dangle out there in front of them. And I tell them, listen, we want you to have guns. I want you to have guns. Your parents obviously brought you here, so they like guns. They're interested in this. So we all want you to have guns as an adult when you learn to use them responsibly. Okay, so don't do anything now that will prevent you from having guns in the future. And I think that's a very important thing when you're teaching kids, right? It's teenagers, right? Because with teenagers, right, a lot of times you're like, okay, I want a gun. You go, no, you can't have a gun. You're not young. Well, to them, in their mind, that means that they can never have a gun. Okay, so you got to make it clear to them that no, it's not that you can't never have a gun. You just can't have it now. But if you're a good boy, basically, when you're older, you will one day be able to have it, and we're moving you in that direction by getting you some gun training now. Okay, so that's an important thing, I think, with teenagers, as far as training them, right? You got to include those things in there. So now, as far as a lot of times people will ask me, well, how about my kids, right? Because I said I have a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, 3-year-old. And I do train kids as young as 5-year-olds. I explain how I do that. Guns resting on the table. Do I train my kids? Right? I have not done that yet. The reason is when I get other people's kids, right? Again, I'm really when I get like a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old, I'm really giving instruction to the parents. So in my case, that's not what I would be doing because I'm the parent, right? So that's why I don't train my kids, or I haven't trained my kids yet. And the other thing to understand is with other people, like I get them when I get them. If I don't get them then, I may never see them again. So, I have to take that opportunity to train them. In my case, hopefully, I will be there in the future when the time is right. And one of the things that I don't want to do is I don't want to force my hobbies down their throat. Okay, so I want them to be old enough, right, to basically come to me and say, hey, we want to do this. We're interested in this. Because right now, like my son, we got him in baseball, and it's one of those things where some days he's doing it, some days he's interested in it, some days not. We've tried piano, right now he's going kind of like back and forth. So with all the other stuff that we're having him try out, I don't want to throw in there the gun training as, and put it kind of like on the same level as, some of the other things that he's doing, maybe soccer, baseball, all the other stuff. So that's why in my case, I would rather wait and get him to a level where he can really appreciate it, because that's something I want to do. I want to really appreciate it and love it. I don't want him to take it for granted. That's all my kids, right? All three of them. I don't want them to take the guns for granted. One day, when they get older, and when I'm gone, they will inherit them. So I want them to feel the same way about them that I feel about them. Okay, so. There it is, guys. I wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you guys enjoy that. If you got any comments of your own family experiences, put it in the comment section. If you're not a member of the channel, subscribe, give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. I don't monetize this channel, so when you guys comment and give it a thumbs up, it helps spread it out to other people. So thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys next time.